mortgage-backed securities and get the mortgage market going.
But just let's be quite clear, in very simple terms here, is it right, are you actually saying the government has to print money? You know, as Paul Mason says, open the account, put fictitious money in there,
yes,
and then put fictitious money out in the market?
Well, nothing else has worked so far, Kirsty. It seems to me that we're getting to the point where the longer we delay things, the much greater the risk to the economy. The longer we delay it, the more likely that businesses that are otherwise healthy go bankrupt.
But you were in Japan, you saw this idea of quantitative easing, printing money during Japan's deflationary years. Did it work?
Well, I was in Japan in the late 1990s, and back then I used to have to call up my news editors in London and say there's this weird thing called quantitative easing happening, and it was like being in a science fiction experiment. We could have been in Pluto. No one knew what it was, and it's extraordinary. Here we are again now. The short answer is that I think most people in Japan now feel that it was a necessary part of the recovery, but it wasn't sufficient.
So it helped psychological boost.
It helped with the margins, and really at the moment what we're dealing with is not so much a battle of maths, but a battle of psychology.
But what makes it so different from what Robert Mugabe's doing in Zimbabwe?
Oh, chalk and cheese. But if I can first start by dealing with the differences with Japan. In Japan, they did this too late. The psychological damage had already been done. They waited too long to get rates to zero. They started quant easing very late in the day. We need to start early and preemptively. More importantly, we need to do it differently. What the BOJ did was it created this excess money and thought that somehow it would percolate.
But it does sound desperate, doesn't it, James?
What I'm saying is, which economy in the West has actually printed money at this rate and actually proved that strategy to work?
It's beginning to work in the US. They started in December, and they've managed to get the LIBOR OIS spread to come in. They've managed to get credit spreads to come in. They've managed to get mortgage-backed security spreads to come in.
But
it's beginning to work.
Business, but is business actually in America? Because businesses are still not able to borrow. There's still no liquidity in the market. Jobs are still going down. Businesses are failing. So I don't understand which planet are we describing.
James is illustrating one of the big problems with this, is that it's very disorientating for consumers and companies. I mean, it's another sign that the world that they thought they understood is collapsing around them, and they're left without a compass, trying to work out what's more.
And the problem is that when you talk to Alistair Darling and you talk about, you know, printing money, quantitative easing, whatever you actually want to call it, he said, well, we're not there yet. And the worrying thing is that people think, well, if they get there and it doesn't work, then actually what happens? I mean, is everything, do you think, dependent on, like Barack Obama talked about his big economic measures today, fiscal stimulus, 3 million jobs, you know, infrastructure, huge infrastructure spending. Are we looking to America, do you think, for further inspiration?
I mean, I do recognise that they have to do something, but I do strongly believe that in the past, you know, we made rash decisions too quickly, we panicked and we got into this mess. It just feels like we're doing more of the same. I think, to me, there's a very simple solution. I think not the Bank of England, but the government needs to step in and legislate that interest rates, whilst they're being cut, that needs to get through to business and to the consumer.
Is it the creation of full-scale nationalisation of the banks?
No, but I think there should be some intervention. The government has enough leverage now. They've put enough money in there. They should be able to legislate to say that you should be able to pass that saving on to business and to the consumer.
If the banks are building up their pot and being responsible, if 1.5% is not going to encourage savers to invest and put their money into banks, how are they going to have the money to loan?
But remember, right now
that's precisely why we need to print it. And if we print it, we essentially unclog the mechanism, because what this allows us to do is put more capital into banks. It allows us to buy the toxic securities that are on bank balance sheets that's stopping them from lending. And the question I want to put to both James and Gillian is, what is the alternative? Okay. Because if we wait and do nothing, we've got the Great Depression coming.
Okay, Gillian.
What I would say is right now the government's in a very difficult situation. If they shoot off their bullets too fast, they'll be left with no ammunition and people will panic more. But if they need to shoot off enough to create an impact, and so I think they need to take a deep breath and try to shoot them off in a steady fashion.
But do you think that in the end, printing money will be the answer?
I think that's certainly where they're heading, yes.
Thank
But
you
is
all
that
very
the
much
answer?
indeed. Well, whether it's the answer or not, I'm sure we all disagree. In Gaza today, the Red Cross has accused Israel of breaking international law after 4 children were discovered starving amongst dead bodies. And the UN has suspended some of its aid operation there, claiming one of its drivers was killed by an Israeli tank shell. Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council is due to meet to discuss a resolution calling for an end to the conflict. Now, we're joined from Jerusalem by our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban. First of all, Mark, a war of words today between the humanitarian agencies in Gaza and in Israel.
Yes, absolutely. There has been some very critical remarks. The incident in which the UN convoy came under fire, a second person who was